So we're looking at how to format strings or integers, doubles, or anything that it might be in Java. To do this, there's a very simple, basic way, and it's in a print line statement. There's other ways to do this, so we can do, if we had a string, we could do String.format like this, and we would have this that we would use. However, if we didn't want to use this and we wanted to print it out also instead of just storing it, if we wanted to store it, this string.format would actually be great. But if we would just wanted to print it out at the same time, we could do System.out.printf. And if we click this, we can read that it says a concise method to write a formatted string to this output stream using the specified format string and arguments. So if we click that, we'll take a format and an argument. And we can actually write strings in here to print out. If we wanted to, we could say something like this. We also need a semicolon because it is a line. So we could write test in here, and then there are specific formats to follow. These formats first start with a percentage. So before you start a format, you need a percentage, and then they're all based on name. So this is a specific type of format, or this is a specific type of format, or this. So they're all based on letters, actually. And for here, what we could start with, we can start with using a decimal. And we can assign an integer. We can say int test is equal to 8. Just like this. And as our argument, we'll pass in test. If we run this code, we can see that we get test 8. Now, if test was a double, if we had double test 8.0, and we run this, we can see that it won't run because this needs to be an integer, since %d means an integer. If we wanted to just type out a percentage, like let's say we wanted to have the percentage of this number, so we'll change this back to int. We'll say int test is equal to 8, and then we wanted a percentage after our d. Well, if we type just a single percentage as we would in a System.out.println statement like this, it gives us an error. And the reason is because it thinks that we're about to format something else. So to get two of these percentage signs, we need to write two of them just like that. Just like in a sysout statement, a basic sysout statement, when we have a string that we're writing and we have a backslash, we need to write two backslashes to produce one output. And if we run this, we can see that we have our backslash and then this, well, we see we have our percentage sign right here, which is what we wanted, and then these two backslashes. It's important to note that this printf does not have a print line in it. So if we wanted a new line after we're done with this string, we would do /n. And if we run this, we can see that we have this next string on a new line. We can also have multiple arguments in here. So if we had other things, like let's say we had int test is equal, or test2 is equal to 9, int test3 is equal to 10, we could format these all on the same line. So first, well, we have this this format right here, which is going to format this. And then if we want to format the next one, we have a comma, and then we have the name of it, so test2. And then after our previously formatted one, we can format this. So we can do %d and then percentage. But this is basically saying is that it is formatting it to a integer, a decimal integer. So just an integer. If we run this again, we can see that we now have 9% right here. Every time this percentage sign, or every time there's one percentage sign, because 2 percentage sign makes 1 percentage sign in output. Every time there's 1 percentage sign in our code, it means that our program is looking for a format. So it's going to look for a character that represents a specific format afterwards. And if we wanted to have test3 in here, we could do comma test3 like this, and then we can do percentage d percentage like this. And if we run this, we will get 10% just like that. So that is how to format integers. If we wanted to format something else, we could actually format different things in this print line, right, or this print right here, because it's not a print line. In this print format, we can format different things. If let's say we had a float, so a float is just a big decimal number. We could say float is equal, or float, we'll call this temp, and we'll set this equal to 45 points, some random number, just like that. So this is going to be our float, and it actually needs to be a double, sorry. So this will be a double. We have a double in here, so it's a big integer, right, like this. And if we were to print this out like this, we can see that we have our double. Now, if we want this in this line, all we have to do is add it wherever we want. And these go in order. So if, let's say, we wanted to add it right here, we could add it to the end, but let's say we want to add it right here. We will have temp like this, and it will be added in. However, if we run it, we can see that we get an error so bad that it only does test in the first argument. It doesn't even go to temp because this is not able to format it to a decimal. This cannot be formatted to a decimal. So what we need to do is have a percentage, and then for doubles we need a floating point. So we'll do f and then percentage like this, and this will give us our double in here. If we wanted to actually format our double, because this isn't really formatting our double too much, this is rounding it, yes, but if we wanted to have more control, like let's say we wanted to stop it at a specific point, let's say we wanted to stop it right here after this 8, well, we use scientific notation, and this is 2 places after the decimal. So what we're going to do is use a decimal and then state that we want it 2 places after the decimal. If we run this again, we can see that it stops 2 places after the decimal and it rounds it. If we wanted it 3 places after the decimal, we could do 0.3, changing this from a 0.2 to a 0.3, and we run it again, and it rounds it to this 3rd decimal place. There's many more things that can be done with this, and there's this cool website, and it gives more in-depth information about how to go about this. And we can see that we have all of these different formats right here. There's probably many more also, but there's these basic ones, and these just help format a string. There's even an example right here. So that website will be linked below, and we can go back, and we were talking about using the String.format like this earlier, and we can actually look at that now if we wanted to format something like this double, or this float right here that we use a double for. This is what we really manipulated. These we were just printing them out in our string, but these we really want to manipulate. So what we can do is use a string, and we can call this str for the first string, and set this equal to String.format like this. And in here we will take our format and then our argument. So we will just copy this part just like that, and we are going to, well, it needs to be, since it's a string, it needs to be in quotation marks, and then we use our temp, which is our double, like this. And now this format is stored in str. So if we want to sys out it like this, we can print it. And if we run it, we can see that we have 45.689. So this is basically the same thing as this, except this is storing it and this is just printing it out. So if we had multiple lines of code where we needed this 45.689 and we needed to print it out multiple times, it's not really logical or best practice to just keep writing this statement. Instead, we'll write it once, store it in here, and if we were to write it multiple times, we would use a loop. We could do int a is equal to 0, and we'll do a is less than, let's just say 7. And we'll run it for a++. And in here, we will take our print statement, which prints out str, and we will just print this multiple times. So that's how to store a format into something. And this can also change depending on which format you use, so it's just fun to play around with the different formats. But this is the basics of how to print it, how to store it, and then how to write inside of it. As long as these, or as well as with these arguments in here that help give us a formatting.